My CEO wife and I had been married for 10 years, and for all 10 of those years, we had slept in separate beds. The day our house caught fire, the flames raged so fiercely that no one dared to approach. Only I rushed inside, risking collapse at any moment, enduring the searing pain as my skin burned to move the wardrobe that had fallen on her. The firefighters who rushed in told us that, given the intensity of the blaze, they could only rescue one of us. Without a moment's hesitation, she pointed to her first love. I wanted to live. I felt no anger, no urge to question her, but with a lingering sense of injustice, I finally asked the question I had wanted to ask for 10 years, but never dared. For these past 10 years, you never let me touch you. Was it all for him? She lowered her head, avoiding my gaze, and finally let out a soft sigh. I'm sorry. If there's a next life, I promise I'll be a good wife to you. I smiled. As expected, only hearing that answer from her own lips could finally make me give up hope. If I couldn't win your heart in this life, I wouldn't bother trying in the next. As she stared at me in shock, I embraced her and plunged from the 6th-floor window. I positioned myself beneath her, making my final farewell. Congratulations. Our story is over. Your story, it begins now. When I opened my eyes again, I was on my way to enroll at Yale University. I didn't hesitate. I used my connections to transfer to the university furthest from Diana Miller. But as I sat on the high-speed train heading to Georgetown University, a girl's shout echoed from outside. Frank Miller, our story isn't over yet. It never will be. I turned my head. Outside the window, a girl was driving a sports car, keeping pace with a high-speed train. Young master, we're almost at Miss Miller's house. Did you get the flowers your father asked you to prepare? Flowers? What flowers? I opened my eyes, still a bit hazy, and saw the butler looking at me with concern. Today's the day you and Miss Miller start college, isn't it? Didn't you say you wanted to bring her favorite jasmine flowers? Seeing the butler's cautious demeanor, and then glancing at my perfectly intact body, I finally understood. I had been reborn. I had been reborn on the very day I was meant to pick up Diana Miller for our college enrollment. And at this moment, I realized I had forgotten the jasmine flowers at home because I was so eager to see her. The butler had already turned the car around, knowing without me saying a word that I would insist he go back for them. Because anything Diana Miller liked, I would give her. After all, this kind of thing had happened countless times since we were children. In everyone's eyes, Diana Miller was my future wife, the future young mistress of the Miller family. They naturally assumed that Diana Miller would willingly marry me. After all, Diana Miller and I had always gotten along well since childhood. But they only guessed half right. Childhood sweethearts are wonderful, but how can they compete with a first love? Diana Miller's family and mine were old family friends. More accurately, her family had achieved its current standing by relying on mine. Out of consideration for her parents' feelings, she had to break up with George Davis, who came from a poor background. At the wedding, the officiant asked if she was willing to marry me. She didn't answer. Instead, with red-rimmed eyes, she asked me, "Are you satisfied now? Now I really have to be with you for the rest of my life." Although the wedding concluded without any further drama, I felt in that moment that I was nothing more than a clown on their stage. But even so, for the 10 years we were married, she never once let me touch her. To say something ridiculous, my most intimate contact with her in those 10 years was when I served as her human cushion, jumping from the 6th floor. But even at the point of death, she wasn't willing to say a single insincere word to comfort me. Now, with a new life, it felt like heaven was giving me a chance to start over. A forced melon is never sweet, so I'll just discard it. My last life was too bitter. In this life, I only want sweetness. I patted Uncle Robert's shoulder. "Uncle Robert, no need to go back. Just take me straight to the high-speed train station. I'm going to Georgetown University." "All right, I'll drive faster now." "Wait." A violent screech of brakes filled the air. Thankfully, I had anticipated it and was already gripping the handle. Uncle Robert apologized profusely, then asked me, "Young master, I didn't mishear, did I? You're going to Georgetown University? What about Miss Miller?" "Southern University is in Riverton City, so it's convenient to drive there. But for Georgetown University, the high-speed train is definitely more convenient." "Yes, Uncle Robert, I've thought it through. I want to go to Georgetown University. As for Diana Miller, she can go to school by herself. A taxi isn't expensive anyway." I waved my hand, cutting off Uncle Robert, who was about to ask more questions. This news was clearly a big shock to him. It's like someone who has smoked for 10 years suddenly announcing they've quit. People's first reaction is always disbelief, but I couldn't explain it. Although Uncle Robert was puzzled, he still drove me to the high-speed train station. My scores already exceeded Georgetown University's admission requirements, and with a little help from family connections, getting in would be quite easy. I called my dad and explained the situation to him. As expected, he was shocked for a long time. He initially disagreed, even wanted to pull strings to get Diana Miller into Georgetown University as well, but after my persistent persuasion, he finally agreed. Once that was settled, I looked back at my iMessage chat with Diana Miller. I had sent over a dozen messages, and she hadn't replied to a single one. The latest message was from 9:50 a.m. today. Diana Miller's last reply had been last week. A simple In fact, over the years I had spent with her, I had tried every trick in the book to chat with her and ask her out. Her most frequent replies to me were these 3 phrases. Oh, are you annoying? And sometimes, she'd just read my messages and not reply at all. I had originally intended to tell her I wasn't going to Southern University, but then I thought, she doesn't care about you at all, so why bother putting myself through that? Finally, I glanced at her Facebook profile. It had very little content, just a few photos with George Davis. She didn't like posting on Facebook. Once, I secretly used her phone to post a photo of us together, and she yelled at me all day for it. But now I realized it wasn't that she disliked posting. She simply disliked me appearing in her world. Looking at the bright smile of the person in the photo, I suddenly remembered that in the 10 years she was with me, she never seemed to have smiled like that. So she could smile. I clicked block, then delete. My body and mind felt more relaxed than ever before. Then I opened another iMessage chat, George Davis. He was also a freshman at Southern University. I slowly typed a line of text. Riverton Heights. Go pick her up. From now on, she's yours. I didn't specify who, but he would know. Then I blocked and deleted the contact. Diana Miller, I don't owe you anything anymore. In this life, I'll take my own path, and you can take yours. We'll never cross paths again. Inside the high-speed train station, there were 10 minutes left until departure. My phone rang several times. The caller ID showed Diana Miller. At first, I was genuinely a little shocked because I had always been the one to call her. The number of times she had called me was 0, but I only paused for a moment before blocking her. It was simply her realizing I hadn't gone to pick her up. Having been doted on by me for over 10 years, she had long grown accustomed to me catering to her every whim. Now, she was undoubtedly calling to scold me for not having arrived yet. In my last life, I was a doormat. In this life, I had decided to cut ties with her completely, so naturally, I wouldn't endure her anger again before leaving. Let's rewind to 10 minutes earlier. Diana Miller finished her makeup, then received a call from Uncle Robert, who told her he would arrive punctually at 10:30. Uncle Robert's tone was a bit uncomfortable, but she didn't notice. Meanwhile, her best friend on the balcony suddenly rushed in, panting. He's here, he's here. Diana Miller's eyes lit up, just as they used to when George Davis came to pick her up. In my last life, George Davis arrived at Diana Miller's house before me. I personally saw her, with a beaming smile, sit on the back seat of George Davis's bicycle. It wasn't until Uncle Robert and I arrived that she remembered her identity. She got into a car that ordinary people could never ride in their lifetime, yet a tear flowed from the corner of her eye. Outside the door, the ding-ding-ding of a bicycle bell rang out. Diana Miller didn't even have time to put on her shoes before running downstairs to open the door, as if afraid that if she opened it a second later, the person outside would vanish. Downstairs, George Davis received a message from her best friend. He quickly pulled out the roses, tidied his hair, and flashed the smile that Diana Miller had once been most infatuated with. The door opened. Diana. There was no response, nor the embrace he had imagined. George Davis only saw Diana Miller glance past him without stopping, looking around as if searching for someone else. Diana, I'm here to pick you up. These are your favorite roses. George Davis thought she hadn't heard him, so he repeated himself and offered her the roses. This time, Diana Miller took a step back. She maintained a smile and a deliberate composure on her face. Thank you, George Davis, but I can't take the flowers. My boyfriend, Frank Miller, will be here to pick me up soon. The roses fell to the ground. This was the first time he had heard Diana Miller admit that Frank Miller was her boyfriend. Her best friend, standing nearby, couldn't help but ask, Diana, didn't you say you didn't like Frank Miller? How come? Diana Miller knew what her friend was about to say. She just shook her head and looked at George Davis. Thank you for coming all this way, but my boyfriend will be here to pick me up soon. Please leave quickly. I'm afraid Frank will misunderstand. George Davis, who had been a bit flustered, suddenly smiled when he heard this. Diana, you don't know, do you? Frank Miller isn't coming. He was the one who messaged me and told me to pick you up. Diana Miller was stunned. Impossible. He loves me the most. How could he say such things to you? Everyone in their circle knew Frank Miller was madly in love with her and was notoriously possessive. How could he possibly let a rival pick up his woman? Seeing her certainty, George Davis became even more smug. As he scrolled through his iMessage chat history, he said, Frank Miller is just a playboy. Maybe he got tired of you, and that's why he asked me to pick you up. Diana, he's a scumbag. I'm your true love. Don't worry, I'll definitely make something of myself and give you a good life. No, impossible. Uncle Robert just called and said he'd be here any minute. Diana Miller's face turned pale. She stared intently at the watch on her wrist, the hands pointing to 12. A red sports car, with a roaring engine, pulled up in front of everyone. Diana Miller's eyes lit up. It was Uncle Robert who emerged. George Davis was indeed lying to her. She composed herself and ran up to Uncle Robert, giving him a sweet smile. Hello, Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert, usually so warm and enthusiastic, now seemed hesitant to look at her, stammering, Miss Miller, please get in the car first. I'll take you to school. But Diana Miller didn't get in. Instead, she clutched her skirt and looked at the back car door. If I were here, perhaps I would know what she was waiting for. In my last life, Uncle Robert hadn't even fully stopped the car when I, impatient, rushed out with the jasmine flowers just to see her a second sooner. But now, there was no movement inside the car. The phrase, Frank Miller asked me to pick you up, for some reason echoed in Diana Miller's mind again. Me, Miss Miller? Uncle Robert, Frank, is he inside? Uncle Robert seemed hesitant to look at her, explaining, Young master isn't up yet. I'll take you to school first. Diana Miller forced a smile. Then let's go pick him up together. I'll go to school with him. Cold sweat dripped from Uncle Robert's forehead. He seemed a bit confused. Why was Miss Miller, who used to be so indifferent to the young master, suddenly concerned about him? But the truth would eventually come out. Uncle Robert wiped his sweat. Miss Miller, I'll still take you to school first. The young master has already gone by himself. Diana Miller picked up the bouquet of jasmine flowers in the corner. But wasn't he just in the car? Didn't he love me the most and want to go to school with me? Finally, with no other options, Uncle Robert had to confess honestly. The young master, he took the high-speed train to Georgetown University. Before he could finish speaking, George Davis finally found the iMessage chat history. Diana Miller, who had been relatively calm, suddenly snatched the phone. She trembled all over, grabbing George Davis's shoulders. He said, I'm yours. He loves me so much. How could he say something like that? Heartbroken, she turned her head to Uncle Robert. Uncle Robert, tell me this isn't true. Uncle Robert didn't speak. His silence was the best answer. Her eyes were completely red. After a full 2 minutes, her voice hoarse, she said, Uncle Robert, please lend me the car. Uncle Robert couldn't help but say, at this time, the young master has probably already boarded the high-speed train. It might be too late to go now, but at this moment, Diana Miller was already in the driver's seat, her voice trembling. It's not too late. Even if he gets on a plane, I'll catch him. He'll never get rid of me in this life. Diana Miller drove while making phone calls. The deep red exclamation mark in the iMessage chat deeply agitated her. He didn't answer 1 or 2 calls. She told herself that Frank Miller just hadn't seen it, not that he was deliberately ignoring her calls. But it wasn't until the last call indicated that his phone was off that Diana Miller finally burst into tears. She pressed harder on the accelerator, ignoring the angry shouts of other drivers, and sped towards the high-speed train station. She had a premonition that if she didn't see Frank Miller this time, everything between them would be over. A journey that usually took 30 minutes, she completed in just 10. Unfortunately, she was a step too late. The staff told her that the train bound for Georgetown University had already departed. Mr. Miller's call came in. Uncle Robert had already told him everything. Diana, I don't know what's gotten into that brat. You come back first. I'll talk to him later. After all, he likes you so much. Diana Miller interrupted him. Mr. Miller, would you do Diana another favor? After hanging up, Diana Miller not only didn't go back, but instead floored the accelerator and drove in another direction. Having gotten rid of Diana Miller, my mood relaxed considerably. But suddenly, there was a commotion inside the train car. Holy cow, sis, look quickly. Am I seeing things? How is there a car driving as fast as this high-speed train? What are you talking about? Do you know how fast a high-speed train goes? How could a car possibly go as fast as a high-speed train? Oh my God, it's real. And it looks like a woman is driving. Is she crazy? My face was full of doubt. A car chasing a high-speed train? What kind of stunt is this? I turned my head to look and indeed saw a red car closely following the high-speed train, overtaking one car after another ahead. This seems to be Uncle Robert's car. Everyone was amazed, wondering why, and took out their phones to take pictures. A car chasing a high-speed train. This is rarer than seeing a UFO. After all, to keep up with the high-speed train, this car would have to be going at least 300 miles per hour. One slight mistake, and it would be scattered everywhere. This wasn't chasing a high-speed train. It was clearly a race against death. What was even more unexpected was that the red sports car opened a small window and a megaphone was brought out. However, the speed of the high-speed train meant it was impossible to clearly hear what she was saying. Everyone gathered at the windows, hoping to hear what the other party was saying. Only I sat there in shock. Through the small opening of the car window, I saw her face. It was Diana Miller. What was she doing? Was she crazy? A passenger with excellent hearing repeated her words. Frank Miller, our story isn't over yet. It never will be. My heart skipped a beat. I had said that sentence before I died in my last life. Was this her answer to me? Could she have been reborn too? My mind was in a mess, and the words of the people around me made it even harder to think. Who among you is Frank Miller? This woman is probably looking for this man. Our story isn't over yet. Tisk tisk. It sounds like the man dumped the woman, right? Oh my goodness, I could recognize that car. A new model Cadillac. At least a few million. This woman's family is rich. What kind of man would dare to dump her? I just zoomed in on my phone. Although it's a bit blurry, you can tell she's a great beauty. And at this speed, if nothing goes wrong, the car will be totaled afterwards. She's chasing a man with her life. I'm envious. By the way, who exactly is Frank Miller? Is he even a man? Come out and say something. The people around me were bustling, but besides the train attendants, probably no one knew who Frank Miller was, assuming he was in another car. I had a headache. In my last life, for 10 years of marriage, she wouldn't let me touch her. Why, after I decided to leave, did she start acting like this? Was it because I saved her, making her conscience awaken and want to compensate me? Although she was heartless towards me, ultimately, I just wanted to break up with her. I never wanted her to die. At 300 miles per hour, one slight mistake, and there would be no more Diana Miller from now on. I opened my phone and hesitated, both because I didn't want to have any more dealings with her and because I didn't want to affect her driving. But in the end, I put down my phone. Traffic police had already intercepted her, and that car was already on the verge of being totaled. The Cadillac's speed gradually slowed down, and soon it was out of sight. The passengers also dispersed, but their discussions continued nonstop. I put on my headphones, isolating myself from the surrounding disturbances, and the last trace of Diana Miller's figure in my eyes disappeared. I drew the curtain and closed my eyes. A 300 miles per hour Cadillac can catch a high-speed train, but it can't catch a heart that has stopped beating. Diana Miller, whether you change your mind or not, there's no possibility between us anymore. Just like this chase that was destined to fail. Enrollment went smoothly. It's worth mentioning that I met a new girl in my class. She also likes Jasmine. Just like Diana Miller back then, her demeanor was clean and pure. She was my desk mate, and we usually got along well. Although there was no intention of dating at the moment, I was full of anticipation for my future college life. In a week without Diana Miller, my life was exceptionally happy and leisurely. However, this peaceful life was soon broken. Today, the homeroom teacher introduced a new transfer student. Looking at Diana Miller on the podium, my face was very displeased. Diana Miller's scores were nowhere near enough to get into North University, and her father wouldn't have actively sent her here. So there was only one possibility. She actively begged her father to let her enroll. Diana Miller's father and my father were comrades in arms. He couldn't possibly refuse to help with this small favor. She seemed not to have noticed my expression. The crowd below the stage was cheering. Georgetown University's campus beauty rankings had already been released, but now Diana Miller would have to be added to the top 3. Her self-introduction was very short. She just looked at me and said words that made all the boys in the class groan. Hello, everyone. My name is Diana Miller, and I am Frank Miller's fiancée. Her smile was very special. Her eyes would curve into crescent moons, as clean as a clear sky after rain. My desk mate secretly poked me with the end of a ballpoint pen, smiling meaningfully. Your fiancée even chased you to school. I didn't. She's not. Don't misunderstand. I naturally made a triple clarification. Seriously, I had sworn off any relationship with Diana Miller. How could I allow her to spread baseless rumors in class? However, she was somewhat right. To some extent, we were indeed engaged. But after all, the groom was unwilling and the bride was heartless. Do we still need to care about this now that we're separated? But now that Diana Miller was using this to make a point, I still needed to explain myself a little. Diana Miller, I think you've misunderstood. We're just ordinary friends. As for that engagement, it was something adults decided when we were children of verbal agreement. What era are we in now? That kind of thing is long outdated. You really shouldn't say that outside anymore. Everyone's minds seemed to have crashed. Looking at Diana Miller and me, they were a bit confused. A campus beauty wife, given for free. Does someone really not want her? The boys admired me, but were also very happy, because now there was another object of affection for them. Diana Miller's face visibly fell, and tears subtly welled up in her eyes. But she didn't say anything in the end, and I pretended not to notice. Decades of suffering had long left my heart riddled with scars. She couldn't forget George Davis. Even if I married her again, what then? Continue to live as a widow? Continue to be mutually disgusted? Continue to wear that subtle cuckold's hat? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. I wouldn't let the same thing happen a second time, nor would I give the same woman a second chance to hurt me. Ahem. Miss Miller, please find a seat. The instructor coughed a few times, breaking the awkward silence. Others might not know, but she knew very well that the boy's father had just donated $10 million to the school, and this girl was also brought in by him through the principal. She couldn't afford to offend him. I didn't care as long as she didn't sit next to me and didn't affect my studies. However, my hopes were quickly dashed. The male deskmate on my left couldn't resist her charm at all. A simple handsome from her completely captivated him, and he gave up his seat to her. For the entire class, Diana Miller did nothing, I did nothing, and my deskmate did nothing. Because until class ended, she just rested her chin on her hand and stared at me, her gaze as if it wanted to melt me. I'm not some ancient monster. When someone who once made my heart flutter stares at me with such affection, how could I not react at all? And my deskmate, as if he had stumbled upon a huge piece of gossip, kept sending me messages asking questions. No way, Frank Miller. Don't you feel anything with such a beautiful woman staring at you? You still say there's nothing between you two? Can ordinary friends act like this? To this, I could only helplessly explain, we're really not close. It wasn't until lunch break that I hastily pulled my deskmate away. I had promised to treat her to lunch today. What I didn't know was that on the campus website, Diana Miller and I had already become celebrities. A post was pinned, titled High-Speed Train Chasing Husband. Hundreds of thousands of views, hundreds of comments, and still rapidly increasing. The high-speed train scene from before had long been circulating on major websites. However, the video quality was too poor, so no one knew who it was. But now, with the words Frank Miller, Diana Miller, and fiancé all converging in one classroom, the answer had surfaced. People commented below, if a girl chased me like that, I'd die for her right away. If she really chased you, you wouldn't be happy. Did that guy save the galaxy in his last life? My girlfriend saw it and said not to believe or spread rumors. Of course, I was unaware of all this. At this moment, I was on my way to the cafeteria with a little shadow following behind me. This time, I was completely annoyed. For the first time in this life or the last, I yelled at her. Diana Miller, what do you want? I'll let go. I've given you to George Davis. What more do you want from me? Can you stop sticking to me like glue? My emotions were a bit out of control. My deskmate comforted me and then left. As she left, she told me to talk things over properly and not to lose my temper with girls, as her coming all this way to find me already said a lot. Seeing my angry expression, Diana Miller somewhat aggrievedly raised her hand, holding a bento box. The food inside was exquisite, with ketchup squeezed into the shape of two small figures holding hands in the middle. I just wanted to bring you a meal. Seeing her like this, I sighed. No need. I turned to leave, but Diana Miller blocked my way. She picked up a spoon, scooped a bit of food, and looked at me stubbornly. Just one bite. I made it for a long time. I was a bit stunned. There was a bandage on her index finger. She never used to cook before. Once, I was scrolling through TikTok and jokingly pointed a video saying, look at how many skills other people's wives have. I like to eat your cooking too. But it earned me her reprimand, telling me if I wanted to eat, I should get a different wife. From then on, I never dared to say such things again. But now, she had cooked for me with her own hands. I don't know when, but I noticed her face was a bit pale. While I was thinking, she had already placed the spoon near my mouth. I instinctively resisted and pushed her away. The bento box fell, and she fell to the ground, scraping her skin on a stone. But not much blood flowed out. I suppressed the urge to help her up, and without even looking at her, I said stiffly, I still have to eat with my deskmate, so I'm leaving first. The way to make someone give up is to refuse. This was something Diana Miller had taught me. Frank, I know you've also been reborn. Can we just talk properly? I stopped walking. I wasn't surprised that she knew I had been reborn. No need. What's past is past. There's nothing for us to talk about. I paused. If you're going to apologize, there's even less need. You're not bothering me is the best apology. Diana Miller's eyes dimmed. Do you really hate me that much? I hate you very, very much. So much that I wish you would die. Okay. What? I was startled. That was something I said in anger. After all, she was someone I once loved. Destroying what I couldn't have wasn't my value. Seemingly satisfied with my reaction, she smiled, and her complexion seemed to have brightened a bit. Nothing. Frank Miller, if you want me to leave, you can, as long as you agree to one request. Okay, anything you ask, as long as it doesn't involve being with you. I didn't hesitate. At this moment, I just wanted to completely get rid of Diana Miller. She smiled, her eyes curved like a triumphant little fox. I want you to spend 5 days with me. No, for days. For these 4 days, you have to listen to everything I say. I instinctively wanted to refuse, but she quickly cut me off. If you don't agree, I'll cling to you forever, cling to you until I die. I'll also ask Mr. Miller to let me marry you. I'll declare to the whole world that you are my husband, so no other woman dares to like you. You. I was so angry I couldn't speak. She smiled again. But if you agree, after 4 days, I won't appear in your world again. I was stunned, pinching my nose. It's just 4 more days of suffering. I've endured decades. These few days won't make a difference. In this life, I don't want my life to be ruined by Diana Miller again. These past few days have been very strange. I thought Diana Miller would give me very difficult conditions. But we really were like an ordinary couple, eating together, watching movies together, and walking hand in hand on the campus track. At first, I was very resistant, but she threatened me, saying that since we had come this far, backing out now would make me look bad. I had no choice but to reluctantly agree. However, I didn't agree to her request for kissing or anything similar. During this time, I also asked her why she was suddenly so good to me. Was it out of guilt? She shook her head and said nothing. During these 3 days, I also asked myself if I felt even a flicker of attraction. The answer was yes, but it wouldn't be the same feeling as before. After 4 days, if she still clung to me, I would leave the country, making sure she could never find me. It wasn't until the 4th day that she invited me to go drinking. My tolerance for alcohol wasn't good, so I refused, but she found me at my doorstep. I reminded myself, it's the last day. That night, I drank myself into a stupor. I only remember Diana Miller saying a lot, but I couldn't hear it clearly. In scattered fragments, I only remembered being thrown onto a bed, feeling very comfortable, and hearing a woman's cries of pain. I thought I had a wet dream, but after the passion, there were a few sentences I remembered exceptionally clearly. I wish time would stop at this moment. Frank Miller, I want you to remember me forever, but ultimately, it's all just an empty dream. Frank Miller, goodbye. I hope you meet a girl who loves you even more in the future. Frank Miller, please, don't forget me. The fragments were scattered, and I woke up from my sleep with a start. The bedsheets were clean and tidy, and only one toothbrush was unwrapped on the sink. All signs indicated that I was the only one in this hotel room. I clutched my head and muttered to myself, did I lose my mind coming to a hotel alone and drinking so much? But I remember someone came to the hotel with me, didn't they? I pounded my head, but I couldn't remember anything. I asked the hotel receptionist, and she also told me that only I had come yesterday. The campus atmosphere was full of youthful vitality. During class, I looked at the empty seat beside me and suddenly asked my desk mate, Maya, do you remember someone sat next to me? She smiled. The one who sat next to you before was a chubby guy, but he often farted, so now he's moved to the furthest spot. Oh, smelling the jasmine fragrance wafting from her, I gradually stopped being suspicious. I don't know why, but every time I thought of that non-existent figure in my memory, my heart would inexplicably ache. Selfish Diana Miller, when I opened my eyes again, I knew this was my 3rd rebirth and also my last. This time, unlike before, in the previous 2 lives my lifespan was 80 years, but in this 3rd life I only had 10 days left. In my first life, a woman who called herself the 4th Calamity told me that the world I was in was a fictional world created by an author. Frank Miller and I were both playthings in his story. I loved Frank Miller, but due to his restrictions, I would be forced to fall in love with George Davis, thereby causing Frank Miller's death. In the first life, I was controlled by the author, obediently following George Davis's words to go on an outdoor adventure. Finally, we encountered a brown bear. It was Frank Miller who appeared, fed it, and saved us. In extreme anger, I briefly broke free from the plot's control and found the person who called herself the 4th Calamity. She gave me a chance to start over. In the second life, I made Frank Miller hate me. As long as he stayed away from me, he wouldn't die. But I never expected that even if I hit him or cursed him, he would always stay by my side. He even willingly became a human cushion to save me in the end. I sought him out again, and he told me there was only one way to escape the author's control. I am the protagonist of this world. If I die, the plot will unravel, and this world will no longer be controlled by the author. I didn't hesitate. I wanted Frank Miller to live. He died for me twice. This time it was my turn. After 3 rebirths, not only I, but Frank Miller also had his memories. I was no longer the female lead, and Frank Miller had also escaped his destined death. I should have left. But I couldn't bear to. I couldn't bear to leave Frank Miller. After I die, everything about me will be erased from this world, including Frank Miller. He would forget me. I really couldn't bear to. That night, I was utterly wild, exhausting him completely. On his shoulder, I bit a very deep mark, hoping it would be forever etched onto his body. I hoped he would remember me when he saw it. Although everything would disappear by tomorrow morning, my body turned into a rain of light. Diana Miller's story was over. From now on, no one would remember her. Diana,